Okay, another week of surviving life's tribulations. This is the month, the 3rd-year anniversary of my son's suicide. I learned that we don't say he passed, you actually say he committed suicide, because people seem to understand that, you know, and I'm starting to feel like there's a 12-step thing, and I'm going through some different emotions, but we'll talk about that later. Have my co-partner here.
Hello, hello.
And we got a couple guests, and I've met since my son committed suicide. We're going to be talking about Suicide Survivor Day, which is November 22nd, and I'll let them explain who they are, where they're coming from, their real jobs, their volunteer jobs, and then we'll explain what they're doing here, and then I have a couple questions about some emotions that I'm kind of going through, you know, so we'll just kind of discuss the whole suicide thing. I know it's not talked about enough,
Right.
and I don't think people know the real feelings, but I'll let you introduce yourself, and then we'll kind of head from there. So.
Okay. Want me to start? Okay. My name is Aileen Brady, and I am actually currently serving as the Nebraska American Foundation for Suicide Prevention Chapter Chair. And we have a local chapter, but the connection to the National American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is a real strong link. But we get to do activities and provide events and services here locally, and we're all volunteers. The whole group of us are volunteers here locally. On my day job, and that's my volunteer job, my day job, I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Community Alliance, so there's certainly a link to mental health there and helping people with their struggles with severe depression and all the other sorts of mental illnesses as well. And what we try to do there is essentially help people get through those tribulations, those hard times in life that life deals with you, and help people get to the resources and the contacts that they need. So I'm going to let Barb introduce herself, and then we talk more.
My name is Barb White. I am a board member with AFSP, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. We'll refer to it as AFSP for the most part. And I, too, have a day job, but mine's in the banking world, so there's very little crossover. But I've been involved with AFSP for many, many years myself. I've suffered some losses. And Donna, not to disrespect your son, but the way we prefer to phrase it is your son died by suicide versus committed suicide.
Right.
I understand by saying committed, it kind of gives it a negative connotation, like it just,
right.
If we say died by suicide, just like died by cancer, or it's just a more positive way to say it, and that's how AFSP has asked us to say it, and just to share that with you.
Right, I used to phrase it different, and then I was corrected by somebody I had on before.
Okay.
So I think a lot of people, like I said, we don't talk about it enough.
Yeah, we don't.
And so we don't.
And so we don't know how to say it. We don't know how to approach it.
Yeah.
Definitely don't know how to talk about it.
That's right.
You know, I mean, I remember when I went when he died. You know, I knew nothing about suicide. I didn't know anybody who knew of anybody. You know, and then all of a sudden people are like, well, yeah, my brother, blah, blah, blah. You know, people don't talk about it.
No. Right.
And I kind of have a philosophy, if people told their feelings, what it feels like to be on the other end, like with the Survivor Day, it's not like people are going to maybe change their mind. My son was not going to change his mind. He planned it for 2 years. You know, he knew exactly what he was doing. He left me a letter and a video will and all that. And one of his things he asked me to do was make positive out of him dying. So this is why I started the show, is to help somebody, or maybe one person, change their mind, or one person get the right information about the different topics that we talk about, you know, every week. And I know it's made a difference on some things. You know, we hear good things through Facebook and through comments, and so, you know, I don't know how big an impact, but if we just change one person's mind,
Just one. That's all it takes.
just one, that's all it takes.
And save one person's life through this program. That's
Right.
worth every minute that you've spent developing it. And we appreciate being here because one of the primary goals that AFSP has also is to break down the stigma that's associated, because too many families don't talk about it. Too many families aren't willing to say that their loved one died by suicide, and so they don't get the support that maybe can be there for them because they're afraid to mention it. They don't want people to know that that's how their loved one died. So this is going to help spread that word that you've had a loss, and there's so many people. We had more than 2,000 people at the walk this year who've had a loss.
Right.
So it just shows you that the word needs to get out, that there's no shame here.
Right, and I've had people contact me. I've talked to some youth groups, and it's a big thing with kids right now, you know, big thing. And I've talked to this one kid, says, you know, I was thinking about it until you came and talked to me.
Really.
Right. You know, so people need to get out and talk about it, the good, the bad, you know. Like I said, I'm going through these emotions now after 3 years. It doesn't get better. You know, people are like, oh, it'll get better. I'm sorry, it doesn't. I still hurt today like the day you know.
I think it's just a thing where I've not gone through that particular type of loss, but I would assume it's just one of those things that you learn to live with.
You learn to live with any kind of death, really. But, you know, and the emotion I'm going through now is I'm mad.
Right.
You know, and it took me, and everybody's like, aren't you mad? You know, in the beginning, aren't you mad at, well, how can we be mad at him? He's not here. But now I'm mad because he's not here, where I can't share NASCAR, I can't share Husker, I can't share the things. You know, I can't say, well, yeah, he was my assistant coach. You know, I mean, we don't share. I mean, I used to share everything with him.
I completely understand what you're saying. As a mother of 4 children, I know I sadly have lost 3 siblings to suicide. And each great thing that happens in your life, it's hard because you think you wish they were there.
So you could
So
share
the
it with
pain happens over and over and over again.
Right.
So, I guess it's what we learn to do with that. And that's, of course, how I got involved. And I just have to know in my heart that they're proud of what we're all doing, and we have to make the positive. And we have to keep talking, because like you said, it is surprising. I've had a few different fundraisers, and people will come up to me and just kind of quietly say, well, I had a friend, or I knew somebody, and it's very surprising. There are more people that have been touched by it than we all know, and as long as we keep talking, then they'll keep talking, and like your example of that young child, then young people or people of any age won't be afraid to talk.
Well, now it's huge with social media, and we talk about this pretty much every week. We hit on social media, you know, and we talked about the bullying. There's a young father that had contacted me. It's called Aaron's Alliance, and there's a young man out in Plattsmouth that had committed suicide. Excuse me, not committed, died by suicide. I just have to learn to correct myself when I say that, because I've been, you know, saying that. Like I said, we got to learn how to re-educate people. So I was going to go out there and speak to, because there's a lot of them that had thought about it also, and they seem to, social media just magnifies things. Bullying, we talked about that pretty much the whole month of October, and a lot of it, I've heard about 2-3 other young people who have died by suicide because of bullying.
Yeah.
Just since, I mean, the very next day after we did one of our shows. And another thing is, do you still feel that I still have people that don't talk to me. So when my son died, and I understand they don't know what to say, but some people just have never spoken to me since. It's like, and I was like, I didn't do it.
Right.
Oh, so they judge you?
Oh, they judge me, and I know that happens a lot with people that have, you know, died by suicide, the families
Yeah.
have, they put a negative stipulation on that.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people, I think, don't talk about it.
Right. And yeah, they take it as a reflection on you somehow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Like it's going to rub off, like,
Right, right.
just because, if you come near me, it's going to rub off, and then somebody,
But, I don't know if you guys are even old enough to remember this, but, years and years ago, 20, 30 years ago, we would whisper the words breast cancer. And
Right.
people were ashamed to say the words. And I kind of think about that with this topic also. We're still kind of whispering suicide.
Right.
And we've got to talk more to stop whispering about this, because too many kids are losing their life. And
Right.
too many kids are on social media, and too many kids between them on Twitter and their Facebook, they're communicating about this.
and they're doing it in packs.
Right.
Yeah, and we've
That
got
mob
to have
mentality.
kids speak up when they see this on social media. We've got to have these kids be willing to take the chance and speak up and tell parents or tell teachers or tell counselors that they saw, X, Y, and Z on social media, someone else's comments. I mean, those are things that we've got to get out so people aren't feeling shame and afraid to say the words out loud.
Well, and I don't think people are educated on I didn't have a clue. My son was thinking this, not a clue. But for 2 years, he planned it. I didn't have any idea. So I don't think, especially young people, I'm going to kill I don't think they take that serious,
Yeah, good
because
point,
people
yeah.
just talk.
Yeah.
People going through a divorce. Oh, maybe if I, blah, blah, blah. So you don't know when to take people serious when people are joking, because a lot of people joke around too much. So you don't know when to take them serious.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I think you have to take every situation
Exactly.
serious.
Agreed.
Exactly.
Because you don't
Exactly.
know. So, like the mass shootings,
Yeah.
they sometimes say, hey, I'm going to do this. People, play it off like it's not serious. The next day, the next week, the person brings a gun to wherever they're at, and,
Right. And like I said, you just take everything. But kids are afraid to talk. We've talked about this with the bullying. Why didn't you say something? Oh, it's no big deal. Everything's a big deal.
Yep.
Kids talk. Kids know what's going on with other kids.
They do.
They're just afraid if they say something, they're considered a snitch.
Yep.
Or they're the one who tattled, or whatever you want to
Yep.
call it.
And that's what I think we have to educate
break
the
that,
kids.
yeah.
We got to break that somehow. We've got to get through to these kids that they've got a lot of, in a sense, a lot of power to help save their friends.
right, if they could save a life by speaking, then
Well, peer pressure is just, I wouldn't want to be a teenager right now in these days.
Yeah.
When I remember I was getting bullied, I'm sure we all did younger. And suicide's been going on for years. Like I said, people would, just whisper breast cancer. People were dying by suicide. You could go back to ancient times.
Yeah.
It's been going on forever, long before breast cancer was even.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's ever going to just, ever going to be out there where people could just talk freely about.
I'd like to think so, because
Me
your
too,
example
me
about
too.
breast cancer, well, now we
Yeah.
have professional football players all in
That's
pink.
right. Absolutely.
Everyone's in pink. Everyone's
Good point.
talking about cancer and talking about breast cancer, so
Yeah.
I have to believe
Me
that
too.
we will get there.
Well, hopefully with Robin Williams, and then some of the other, other football players who have done, died by suicide. So you got me really thinking here.
I didn't mean to do
No, so I got to catch myself. But we had some NFL football players that have a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So,
Kansas
but then
City.
they do it, and then you don't hear about it. People need to keep talking about it.
Right.
And I think if we talk about the feelings that it is for a mother or a sister or brother or whatever, my son acknowledged in his letter, Mom, I know that, this is the hardest thing. He acknowledged my feelings, but he still made the choice to do that. So he made the choice. He made the point of, and I guess I'm fortunate, if you want to call it fortunate, that he did leave me a video will and letters, because some people don't get anything.
Right.
So that's why I feel like I can really bring a light into it, because he put his emotions and he put everything in there, why he did it, so maybe we can touch how he did it. And I work with mental illness now. That's what I do for a full-time job. And I must say my son was in his right mind, For him to plan it for 2 years, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of it, you know, is mental illness, I agree. But a lot of it is snap judgment.
Yes, it is.
A lot of it's snap
Yes, it is.
judgment. People just like, oh, I don't know what to do, boom.
Yeah.
You can't take that back.
You can't take that back.
Yeah.
But, you know, all of a sudden you hear somebody hanging themselves, well, yesterday they were fine, but today they got the divorce papers, boom. So that's a lot of snap judgment.
Yeah. You know, just to speak to that impulsivity, when we were doing some research on some studies that were done for adolescents, and they had the age range of 15 to 24, I believe it was. And there was a particular study that was done at a Houston hospital. And each person who came into the emergency room that had had a suicide attempt, they said, and asked them, how long did you contemplate this attempt? And for that age group, 4 out of 10 was less than, let me think here, I got to get this right. 4 out of 10 was less than 5 minutes, and 9 out of 10 was less than 24 hours.
Right.
Wow.
And each of them would talk about whatever they would frame as a personal crisis as their reason. The breakup of girlfriend, boyfriend, something bad happened at school and they didn't want their parents to be told, but whatever they identified as a personal crisis, they said this was why. That's the impulsivity, that action that you talked about, that
Right.
is so impulsive.
And I think that's a lot to do with the youth now. I think a lot of it is impulse.
I don't think at that age you really understand completely the finality of death. I think, I mean, consciously we know it's it.
That's
We're
right.
not going to wake up tomorrow. We're not going to see
right.
this. We're not going to see that. And I just don't think at that age you haven't probably experienced much death or much loss, hopefully, at that age. So you just don't really completely have a grasp on just.
Well, you know, and I think they need, my opinion, I think they need to talk about this more on television. I mean, they bring up the sex, they bring up the drugs, the profanity, but they don't talk enough about this to show. It's a, you know, they do rap music, they don't talk about this. If they do, because that's what kids relate to. So I think they need to find the hot buttons and talk about it and put it on one of their favorite shows, you know, that these kids watch, and make it a finality, final thing like, whoa, you know. I mean, I have to admit, you know, soap operas, I mean, you know, and it's final, and you're just like, yeah, but that's a soap opera. Yeah, but it can still happen.
Right.
And until it happens to you, you don't know what it's like. Let's take a break. We're going to take a break, talk about our sponsor here. We got our first sponsor, woo-woo! And then we're going to keep talking about what we're talking about. But, my man.
All right. Today's sponsor is Coach's Place. It looks like they just had a tournament this past weekend, I know. But this week at Coach's Place, they have a Halo Master Chief release that will be $5 to play all week. On Saturday, they have $10 gameplay that allows you to play all day. They have daily deals every day of the week. Wednesday is family night, and families of up to 4 people can play for 2 hours, receive pizza, snacks, and a drink for $15. Thursday is Throwback Thursday. Any old system gameplay is only $1 an hour. Friday is Fam Bam Friday. You and a friend can play for the price of one person. Make sure to sign up for the text alerts by texting Coach's info to 55469 and receive deals, new alerts, and free deals. Deals, free alerts, and free deals.
Say that real fast 5 times.
Thursday night of Thanksgiving, Coach's Place will be hosting a lock-in for Black Friday for parents who want to go out and shop. If you want your kids to be locked in with video games and food, please contact them at 402-905-9898. It's starting to get cold to have the birthday parties outside, so why not have it inside at Coach's Place? They've got a variety of packages for anyone's budget and size, and you can visit them online at www.coaches-place.com for more details.
Very good. Very good. Okay, that's a lighter note of our topics here. So,
If I could just plug, we want to talk about the Survivors Day, but I just wanted to mention, based on our conversation, to our audience or to our audience who may have friends that are contemplating suicide, there is a hotline. It's 1-800-273-TALK, 1-800-273-8255. It's a phone call and talk, and just talk about your feelings and get the help. So
We'll make sure to have you give that out again before the end of the show,
yes.
too.
But,
I know we were talking before about kids, and they don't want to talk to parents, and they don't want to talk to teachers because they're for the teachers going to talk to the parents. So it's hard for them to find people to talk to. So I had brought up to a group that sometimes it takes an unbiased opinion, or maybe not a stranger, but somebody to come in that has been on this side of it, to talk to these kids about, do you really understand what your families are going to go through? You know, or how do you feel your friend just died from suicide? How do you feel? Do you want but it's hard to do it as a family member or a teacher or a pastor. So I think, you know, as us or whoever, to go out and just listen. Don't need to, because we don't know what people are going through, so we can't say. I mean, we can say we're going through this, but we can't say what each person themselves are going through. But we could be listeners as somebody who, and I thought about maybe getting a group of people together who would just go and just be kind of a silent person there, just for them to sit down as a round table and talk amongst themselves. Because kids or even adults, or, you know, sometimes people, you know, you go to the bar or whatever, you know, a whole bunch, you're in church, a whole bunch of people get together, they seem to talk, all of a sudden you're talking about things you didn't think you're going to.
right.
Because, especially kids, it's hard for them to trust. Because they might have been let down, or they're afraid somebody's going to make fun of them, or they're going to, you know, institutional for 30 days, or just because they're thinking about things. And that's the kind of things that television shows. And to me, that's not necessarily going to happen, just because, you know, they're not going to just lock you up for 30 days because you're having a thought. Now, if you've attempted, that's different, but a thought.
Well, and lock you up, I think is kind of a strong term. With my family history, we do genetically have mental illness, and I have had a child that did have to go into a facility for some care, only because, and the nice thing about doing something like that is they can step away from the rest of their life and get to focus on themselves and what's going through their minds with professionals. And so even if there is a fear of being locked up, or, which again I think is a very negative
It's a
term,
negative thing, but I think that's the way kids think of it.
right, but it is a positive thing, because you can work 24 hours a day on yourself alone. So even if someone is thinking that that's not a good thing, it really is a good thing. Because we as parents, we as friends, we don't have the expertise to do that for people. So I guess I'm just trying to say, if there are young people listening, going to get some 24-hour, even if it's for 4 days, 5 days, whatever the doctor deems necessary, it's a great way to get working on yourself and get immediate help. Because sometimes if you want to wait to see a therapist, or you need to see a doctor, you could be weeks on weeks. And if it's very, very urgent, then maybe they do need to go straight to the hospital.
You know, and another thing is, and even my doctor mentioned, he says, Donna, you know, there might be a time where you need something to help get you over that edge, because this is a big burden you're carrying. Your best friend, your son, killed himself. That's a big burden to carry. So he said, and I admitted I do need something, because just every day I would cry, or just a drop of a whatever, a song, whatever. So even as young people, if you have that, you just don't feel right, don't be afraid to ask for help.
That's right.
Because you don't want to get to the point of no return.
Well, I could just add, we want to talk about Survivors Day, but we also have some support groups in town that, I don't think I have all the resources with me. Okay. But we recently, part of the money that we raise at the walk, we can send people for training on how to support or how to facilitate support groups. So we do have a sibling support group, we have a parent support group, and we have now, started just in September, one for adolescents. first time we've had one in the Omaha area, and that one is actually the last Thursday of the month, and it's near 108th and Maple at the Omaha Church of Christ, Omaha Church of God, 108th and Maple area.
And the months of November and December, it's actually the third Thursday,
Right.
only
That's
because
right.
Thanksgiving and
Holiday.
Christmas
Correct.
fall on those days.
Correct.
But I'm going to pull it up and give the exact address.
Very good. Very good.
But yeah.
I know
we
there's Mondays because it wouldn't, I was looking for support groups to go talk to, and I think there's a church on Monday or Tuesday, that you could go to. It's a bereavement group.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so that's part of what we want to try to do is not only reach out to people who are struggling, but also reach out to survivors for sure, and provide some support. And that doesn't work for everybody either, because it's based upon how people feel. It may or may not be what helps them, but it's one thing that we can offer.
Well, I have a question for you. When I went, first thing, I did the walk. I've had so many, even since you've known me, I've had so many problems. Even, I don't think I've walked them all in eight years probably, because I've had so many health issues. But I actually went in, I said, I'll walk just a little bit, I'll be right back. Well, I ended up walking the whole walk.
Did you?
Yes.
Great. Good for you.
And I said, well, that was my son guiding me, because I would have never thought. I took a picture, put on Facebook, hey, I did walk the walk.
That's great.
So, and then and I think that is great that we have that available, because you just walk along and you just talk to people and you see all the shirts and you see how people remember. It's awesome. People have balloons, they have banners, they and the
Shirts.
there was thousands of them out there, and we walked the whole Conagra,
Right.
the Conagra.
Heartland Park.
Yeah, and it's
Conagra.
great to walk out there, because it's you got a lot of night, and we end up having a great day the day I was there. I didn't go this year, but I went last year.
Okay.
So I think, like I said, being around people and just have the same, they understand.
And you
Yeah,
definitely,
to relate.
Yeah.
you definitely know you're not alone.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. You took the words out of my
Yeah.
mouth.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I could ask, so did you have anybody dear?
I haven't. I have been fortunate. I have not had a loss personally in my family, but I think partly it's because I've met people like Barb and others in our chapter that have worked so passionately that I just wanted to be a part of that and help raise that awareness and really work on prevention. I mean, that's been part of what we really, really want to stress is let's get the word out about resources and help, so maybe we can prevent. Just doing these kinds of shows. We were thrilled that you asked us.
Well,
to be on.
I was going to have them on last year, but I ended up being sick. So we ended up, I think it was right after the walk we talked about being
Yeah.
on.
Yep.
But yeah, it's just certain time, you just like, I cannot do this, because I just didn't feel good.
Yeah.
And I hate postponing any show.
Yeah.
But and I really felt bad. But it's
No,
like,
we
okay,
understand.
we definitely have to talk about this, especially for some reason this year it's really, really bothering me about my son. I admit the first year, being around the holidays and everything, and Thanksgiving was maybe it's because it's so close to Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was his favorite holiday. I mean, he would starve himself for like 4 days so he could eat so much he would make himself sick, and and then he would go to the Husker game the day after. So I think all of this is just really, and then, certainly like Garth Brooks is coming back, that, we had Garth Brooks songs at we had a celebration of life party. We didn't have a funeral. Just a lot of things, but this year it's just like regurgitating in my stomach. I wake up in sweats and think about all the time for some reason this year. I couldn't tell you, I don't know if the third year mark, if there's a specific or whatever, but it's like I really just need to talk about this because that makes me feel better because I love my son dearly. I said he was my best friend, and I'm very, thank God my son and I was that close, even though he didn't want to burden me with this, and he told me that he didn't want to burden me with this, so he loved me enough not to put me through whatever misery or whatever he was going through. So I do respect him for that.
And we know that everyone grieves differently and at their own pace and in their own time. So, whatever it is and wherever you're at right now, it's okay. There's no one way.
No textbook.
Nope.
Right.
No
You can look up, you can Google it, you can look up there are no answers to any of this. Other things I don't think there's answers for when there's any death involved, really.
I
But
think
suicide's a whole,
It's very unique.
it's very unique.
I don't think people quite understand the feelings emotionally that one goes through, and because they didn't have to die.
Right.
It's one thing if you lose someone to an illness or something, but suicide, it was a choice, albeit a very difficult choice in most cases, but they could still be here. And I think, like you talked about being mad, I frequently went from mad to sad to mad to sad, and I think it always will be there because it angers me to know that that they made this choice. But I have to know that for them to have gone to that extreme, the pain was so severe that they felt there was no option.
Yeah, and I know he's at
So
peace.
I finally
Yeah.
have peace
Yeah.
knowing that
Yep.
they
I do
don't have
too.
to endure the pain that they were enduring.
Yeah.
Yeah, because something was excruciating to him to plan it for 2 years. Something, like I said, no matter what, he was going to do it. Well, maybe if you would talk to him, and a lot of his friends feel guilty. No, he would have. It might not have been that year. It would have been the next year. Something was going to happen. It was going to be in November, right after Thanksgiving, some year. But something, it would happen that year because something happened. So it's not like, well, if we would have talked or if he would have got counseling. No, he wasn't going to change his mind. I can actually and wholeheartedly say that
You can say that. Yeah.
because something was in his heart all those years. He carried this for 2 years, knowing that he was going to die. But he had a bucket list, and he fulfilled his bucket list. And he gave me things back through that time, and he was planting things in my drawers, and he was doing different little things so I would remember him. Gave me back all the basketball jerseys that he ever wore for me when I was coaching him. So he knew exactly. He was giving things back to friends. He was calling up friends he hadn't talked to in 10 years to say goodbye. He was in such a good mood. Yeah, he was telling you goodbye. He wanted you to remember him. And we went to a wedding, and I told him he was acting like a diva because he had to have his hair a certain way. But he wanted everybody to remember him looking like a stud.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
That's the last, he wanted everybody, that's the last way they wanted him to remember him. So, to me, he never thought he was too smart, really. But to do it the way he did it, it was brilliant. Honestly, it was brilliant. To final step, every little baby step that he did to that final moment. To me, the hardest part, 'cause they didn't find his body for 2 days. I knew the minute he did it because I got sick to my stomach and I fell to the ground. So I knew exactly the minute, and that ended up being the exact minute he did it. So the hardest part for me, and this is where I really get emotional, is when he got out of his truck and walked through this field to his final point. And bringing the gun to his mouth saying, "I love you, Mom. But I have to do this." That's the point that people have got to understand. I have to live with this the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I went out there, and I drove out there, and I walked the walk. I walked the final steps he took. So maybe I could get some sense of feeling that, and it's weird, but grass has never grown in that spot where his truck was parked and the trail where they found him. Grass has never grown there. It was at a cornfield, and you can see that. So people have got to understand what families go through, because every day I think of him, and he's not here, and yes, I'm angry, because, like I said, Husker, just everything. From the time we'd get up in the morning, we'd text each other. the last thing at night, he texts me, "I love you, Mom." I don't get that anymore. I don't get those happy feelings. I don't get him getting married and having I wanted a grandchild. I'm not going to get that from my son. So kids, or whoever you are thinking about this, to me, and I hate to say this, but it's selfish. It's selfish what you're doing, taking your life. You're doing this for you, but what are you doing to everybody around you? You're leaving pain and suffering for the rest of their lives. You're gone, and you're at peace, but nobody that you ever were associated with has that.
And we, if we've never been in that position to know how that feels for them. You mentioned it earlier that for your brothers that they were in such a dark place and you may not ever realize what that felt like for them. I believe that they aren't in the place where they can think about what the impact it's going to have because they're hurting so badly. They can't get outside of themselves in that moment to know how it impacts their loved ones. I believe that.
I believe so as well.
Yeah.
The pain is so great.
It's so great.
I know I said that before, but the pain, and there's a saying I found somewhere, but the pain to stay was much stronger than the pain to go. I didn't quote it, but that basically is what it implies. It was much more painful for them to stay on the face of the earth than it was for them to let go and to take your own life. Obviously, you had to be in a lot of pain, but I'd like to say to those people, you've hopefully seen some of our billboards, the leading cause of suicide is depression, and depression is very, very treatable. So call your doctor. If you don't feel like you're getting the answers from the doctor you have, find another doctor.
That's right.
I'm fortunate. I suffer from depression myself, and I'm not embarrassed to admit that. And as we've said, let's keep talking. I talk to people, and I find out lots of people are suffering from depression or some sort of mental health issue, and there's medication and there's great doctors out there.
Especially around the holidays.
Right.
And I think that's
Because
what's...
I think anyone that suffered loss.
Right. And Veterans Day, we've had... At the walk, there was tables set up when I talked to a gentleman, and veterans and people that have been over to war. This is the number one thing for them right now is suicide because they can't deal with the images that they saw. So being Veterans Day, it's probably the hardest day for them also because they're bringing, you hear everything on news, but it's bringing back memories. It's bringing up things, and I think that's what it is with me now too. Things are bringing up things inside of me, and I'm probably facing things that I haven't faced so far. I know I've never had anxiety problems. I really don't feel like I have anyway, until the first time I flew to Louisville, Kentucky in a plane, and I had gotten a tattoo on my son's birthday, about in the clouds and stuff. And I'm up in the plane, and all of a sudden, I literally couldn't breathe. I had an anxiety attack. I looked out, I was like, wow, I'm in heaven. And then it's like, Steve's up here. And then I was like, I'm never flying again. I can't be up here. I can't look out and see that. So I always like to sit by the window. I can't do it anymore. So I came back, and I was like, it just kept eating at me. So my youngest son's like, Mom, you need to go talk to a counselor. So I went and talked, and then she told me I didn't need therapy. Okay, thank you. I still, but then I was like, okay, I have to get over this. So I did, But it brought up something in me, and like you said, it brings up emotions and depression. I find myself, sometimes sitting at home like, and I have to, I don't think I have depression, but you feel depressed. You can't help but feel depressed. And you can probably think that I'm sitting here depressed right now. Yeah, I'm very unhappy. But I try to be a half full type person like we talk about. We try to bring the good. Even though it's pain. It's a pain you just, I can't even explain it. knowing that somebody you love took their own life. It's just a feeling, knowing that, I don't know,
Well, one of the things for the International Survivors of Suicide Loss Day, which is November 22nd, is that sharing time. And while the event is and has been typically focused on people who are newly bereaved, perhaps have lost someone in the past year, it's really open to anyone that wants to come. And we really want to get the word out. So again, we thank you for allowing us the opportunity to be here. But it's an opportunity for share some of those thoughts and talk to people that have had similar losses and get that perspective from them too of what they're going through. Some things might be the same, things may be entirely different, but you get to listen to others and share your own perspective. And I'd like to share one experience from last year, and Barb's heard this story, but it made such an impression. And this mom had lost her daughter earlier in the year, and she was really concerned about the upcoming holidays, and she didn't know how she was going to be able to include her daughter because she didn't want to dwell on it with the rest of the family, but she wanted her daughter included in their celebration. And one of the traditions of International Survivors of Suicide Day is to light a candle in memory of the individuals that have been lost. And so the group suggested, do that at Thanksgiving, at your Thanksgiving meal. Light a candle in memory of your daughter. And she did, and she called following Thanksgiving, and she said it made all the difference in the world for her on Thanksgiving to know that her daughter was part of their Thanksgiving meal. So, that's one thing, that's one family, but it made a difference, and that's what we want to do.
Right.
That's what we want to do.
And that's something, it's like a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Something like that, you pass it on to them, they pass it on to someone else.
Yeah.
You never know how far that can go.
That's right.
You set out to at least touch one person,
Yeah.
but in the end, who knows how far it can really go.
Yeah, you're right.
So,
Yep.
I'd like to just step back and just reiterate the International Survivors of Suicide Loss Day, November 22nd. Here in Nebraska, we have two locations. We have an event here in Omaha at Community Alliance where Aileen works. She's offered up some of the rooms there. And then we also will have one in Lincoln at Our Savior's Lutheran Church. And if you would just go to our website or go to afsp.org, that is the website that will take you to lots and lots of information. In Nebraska, we do have our own page, which there's lots of information there as well. But if you go to afsp.org, you will see International Survivors of Suicide Loss Day right on the first page, and then you can click on that and get all of the details. But again, that's Saturday, November 22nd. Ours will be from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. And the event in Lincoln, they're going to start a little bit earlier, 10:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. There's no cost. Bring yourself, come by yourself, come with friends. Just know that you will not be alone. There'll be other people there that you can talk to. And I found it really helpful when my brother died most recently. People don't like to talk about people that are gone, especially if they've chosen to die by suicide. And for me, as a survivor, I wanted to talk about him, and I wanted people to know it was okay. You talked about lighting the candle at our holidays. I like to talk about, when Mike was here, when Ray was here, because I want them to always be alive, and I want us to remember them, and we can still remember the good times and that they were in our lives for a very, very long time, but I think people are afraid to talk about them, and I want them to know it's okay. I want to talk about them, and for me, emotionally, it was really good for healing because I felt like they were still alive. Their life meant something, and it's good to keep talking, so that's kind of what we do is just try to keep it open conversation. It's okay to remember Mike. He did the silly thing on Thanksgiving, or he did the silly thing. Or
One of the things, like I said, I work at the Y on weekends, and one of the things I've done the last week, say volleyball or basketball, whatever, I dedicate to my son, and I tell the kids and coaches and everybody, anybody who has not scored a basket, we're going to set it up so they score. because my son was a coach and he was a team player. So if there's a little girl that has not hit the ball over during volleyball, we're going to make it so she does this. So that's kind of something I explain to the parents and the kids and everybody why I'm doing it. And so that's kind of, because that's what he believed in. And so that's kind of my way of giving back. And then whenever I go talk to youth groups, I always carry a bag of M&Ms, because that was my son's thing, was M&Ms. And I always say, okay, and I hand out an M&M to each person. I say, hold on to this M&M. And then I start talking, and then I say, okay, eat this M&M. Okay, and then I tell them the story about Steve. And so you always, when I talk to groups, matter of fact, when I walk into youth group, they're like, well, how's Matt? And, I ask about my other son. How's Coach Steve? And everybody knows me as the basketball lady. So then I say, well, Matt's graduate, blah, 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 and Steve died. And then even little 4- and 5-year-olds are like, Coach Steve died, and then I tell them, so you got to find a way to talk. But even if at a young age of 4 years old, kids still know what that means. But you have to talk. Like, I know we had Teddy Bear Hollow on here, and they talked about, they bring in, the kids, and what this group is, this place is great, but kids who've lost somebody in their life, they come in, and they come in without their parents, and they just talk as a group, and their feelings about what it feels to lose, and that's great. And I think maybe you're doing teenagers now. I don't think it'd be a bad idea to actually have adolescents, maybe younger, 8 years old, because I think they understand it. Because with the internet,
right? I was going to say that, and TV,
Right.
they might get the wrong information. So I think if we give the right information out, they'll understand it, or try to understand it. They're not, until you've actually went through it, I don't think you really do understand it. So.
And Teddy Bear Harlow, they do a great job, and they really try to help kids deal with all sorts of grief. And I don't know if at that age that's the best way. I think it is the best way when they're young to deal with death in a more general kind of way when they're that young. So I think they do a wonderful job of helping families. I know that we have asked them to be at our walk. And
that's how I met them, was through I met a lot of people through the walk.
Very good.
Yeah. Because I just think, and people have never heard of them.
Yeah.
So until, I've had a friend of mine who lost somebody, and their child was involved. I was like, you need to take them to Teddy Bear Hollow. So there is a lot of things out there. Yeah. People need to look. I mean, internet is 24/7 now. So, you can read things, but I think the reason I like doing the show, and, we could bring out stats and we could read stuff off the internet, but we bring on true people and true stories where people can actually, like me crying, people are not used, they're like, so I think we've had cancer people on here and different things, and it's true stories. So it's not just reading off a piece of paper.
Absolutely.
And I think
that's what people want.
And I think that's how they can relate.
Yeah. Agree.
Because I don't know, and I just think we just need to talk about it.
And I do have one question for both of you guys. You both touched on the anger. Now, is that just a general anger, or is that anger at them?
Mine is anger at them.
Mine too.
How could you do this to my mother?
Right.
As a son, how could you put my mother through that pain? And but it is also anger at, look what you've taken away. You have these beautiful. Unfortunately, two of my brothers never met my children; they weren't born yet. But angry because you put my kids through this. How could you put your niece through the pain that you put your niece through?
Right.
My daughter, particularly, all my children have suffered, don't get me wrong, but there's certain ages that children, when they experience things, and I think it really impacted my daughter because she was at a very vulnerable age, and I don't think she knew how to quite deal with it and accept it. And
Sure.
So that makes me very angry. You can hurt me, but boy, when you start hurting my children, and any mother knows that, that's when I really get angry.
Right.
And I think that's part of it. Yeah, I'm angry too because, but the anger towards me has subsided because I do feel like I know that they were in so much pain that they made a choice, and it wasn't to hurt me, it was to save them. But a lot of my anger, I think, like I said, is because I'm angry because what they did to my children.
And that's like me too, because his brother felt like if he was away at college, he felt like if he would have been home.
Right.
So, and his friends were like, well, maybe if I would have spent, no. And I told this last week, but I went to his job the next day, and I knew he worked with mentally challenged adults too, and I knew they felt guilty. So I walked in, I was like, it wasn't your fault. And they did. They did think they said something to make him so mad that he did that. So, yeah, it touches everybody. Like I said, it touches everybody around him. Yeah, and the anger, yeah, I'm mad at him. And I've never actually, I just started feeling that, probably, and I don't think I've even told my son, sorry, Matt, but we don't really talk about Steve. I have this stuff up on the wall, Superman stuff and things up on the wall. And I think one of the things, I never had to identify the body. So they went by his tattoo. And recently, my little dog passed away, and she went through the stages of being warm too. She went through the whole thing, and I didn't have to go through that with my son. And I was like, whoa, I didn't have to go through all the emotions of him dying to him, the way they get really hard and all that. And I was like, maybe if I would have. And then my son's like, Mom, you didn't want to remember Steve like that. That's why they didn't have you.
That's right.
But those feelings I had not gone through. So that was a whole different set of emotions
Sure.
that I didn't have to. But my dog passing away brought that out, which sounds weird, but that's something that I personally didn't have to deal with, and then so it brought up. And maybe that's what triggered all this, because this only happened a couple months ago. So maybe that's what triggered everything in me.
How long did you have your pet?
Almost 15 years.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that definitely. I'm sure it has stirred a lot of emotions. So maybe that is part of why this.
Yeah,
is more difficult.
right. And then my other dog, that was considered his dog, my little Gizmo, but he left in the letter, Mom, I taught Gizmo how to give, every time Gizmo gives you a hug, he taught him how to do that. So whenever I hold him, I go, give me a hug, and he'll lay his head down on my chest, so I feel like that's Steve, because Steve taught him how to do that.
Right.
So he said I taught him, So, and then it was just like, I don't know, just all these weird things. I can't explain it. But what I do want to bring up is we're doing a Red Cross blood drive in memory of Steve. And that will be on Black Friday. And it's going to be 10. It's going to probably go until 3 because they, thinking if we get the extra people, they want to make sure we have enough time.
Now, is that just blood, or is that the whole platelet thing as well?
It's a blood drive.
Just the blood.
Right,
Okay.
and we're going to be having them on in a couple of weeks talking about it. But, that's way of my, helping somebody, because that is the 3rd-year anniversary of Steve's, the day that he died. So, so the blood drive, we'll be posting it on Facebook, and the Red Cross is going to be doing some media and different things about it. But there's a very, very big shortage of blood right now, huge. And with the winter months coming up, with the accidents and everything, so this is Thanksgiving is the day before, so this is a way you can give back and give thanks. And then also the holidays give. You're out shopping. It only takes, 30 minutes, maybe 45 at the most. Kick back, come in here, hang out, see the station. We're kind of doing it part of our show also. Meet William. William's been a very big, he was touched by Steve's passing also. because he's known Steve since he was a little kid. So come and meet William. He's been let me come in here and kind of vent or whatever you want to call this on Mondays. Hopefully we're helping somebody,
Right.
And my new co-partner here, he's been awesome. He's, the way we met was a godsend, and everything. And so I got a new friend here, and meeting everybody, somebody new every week, feel like I have new friends,
Yeah.
Brought in my networking, so November 22nd, 11:30 to 1:30. No, I did notice something today, and I wrote it down, but the way that Survivor Day started was a gentleman, Mr. Reed, had lost his brother. I don't know if you guys know this, but I saw this on the internet today. And that's how this started. The Friday, it was the Saturday before Thanksgiving.
Right.
And
It's easy to remember every year.
right, so it's the Saturday before Thanksgiving every year.
Right.
And I think it was in 1972 he lost his brother, or that's when he started. Or 1999 he started it. 1972 he lost his brother.
Okay.
So, and then you're also going to be showing a video, or there's a documentary going to be showed that day also.
It's a screening of The Journey, a documentary that tells the stories of a diverse group of suicide loss survivors. I'll just read the rest of this real quick. Learn how they're weathering the suicide of a loved one and how they are finding their way back to a life rich in meaning and even joy. And then after the viewing, then we'll have some time to talk. Whether we break in small groups or stay together, whatever
Right.
feels comfortable, let
Right.
the audience
That's right.
dictate.
Right, so I wanted to make sure, I was just kind of fascinated about how it all got started.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to bring up the documentary, so maybe if you just watch the documentary, you might get something out of it.
That's right.
That might instill you to speak.
Yeah. And this is happening. It's called International Survivors of Suicide Day. It's happening across our country, and I'm not sure how many more countries.
Right.
Yes, but it's international. So at about the same time across our country, people are coming together to view this documentary and to talk to each other. So that's pretty powerful. Too.
Right.
So
That's why I
As
cut.
we all
people.
light our candles, everyone's lighting candles. all
Yeah.
across
Right.
The world virtually.
Really, yeah.
And even if if you just want to feel the impact of a group that gets together,
Yeah.
and the feeling and emotions that come out of these. Because when I went a couple years ago, I just happened to work Saturdays. I'm going to try to get off, but of these people together, and the joy and the love that comes out of this whole group, and the way they make you feel as a survivor.
This is how I became involved with the organization. When my brother passed away, I was on the internet looking for some answers, I guess. And I learned that it wasn't international at that point, but there was a survivor of suicide loss day, and the nearest one was in Norfolk. And my brother and my sister and I went there, and then we met a couple of people that worked in Nebraska. They had started the walk here, and that's how I became involved. But it's a really good resource, just to know that you're not alone. And
Yeah, 'cause sometimes you feel like you are.
right.
I
I did want to just mention, I did pull up the teen support group, and
Okay.
just to reiterate, the Church of Omaha, which is 3715 North 114th Ave, which is 108th and Maple, they meet at 6:30, and like Aileen said, the last Thursday of the month, with the exception of November and December, it will be the third Thursday. But this is all on our website. The teen group is under What's New, but go to afsp.org/Nebraska, and you should be able to find out all of this great stuff.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for
You
having
know,
us.
Much. We appreciate
And I think people hearing our stories,
Thank you for telling
Yeah.
your story and being so open
Absolutely.
about it. We
Yeah.
need everyone to do that.
yeah, and hopefully other
Absolutely.
people will too. And if somebody needs to talk, call me.
Okay.
I'm available, to listen and, and steer you the right direction to groups. I do have that information also. So,
And Barb, can we get you to give that phone number again that you gave earlier in the show?
The hotline is 1-800-273-TALK, 1-800-273-8255. 24 hours a day, the phone is manned. So if you are not comfortable talking to your family or friends, There's some anonymity here. Call and get the help that you need. And like I said before, call your doctor. Your doctor will be a great resource to help you if you feel like you're struggling.
And, swallow your pride if you have to, because it could save your life.
That's right.
So,
As we are a testament, you are not alone.
right.
Lots of people have experienced some of these struggles, and you'll get through it. There's help out there. So.
Okay, you want to give our website again for our Coach's Place?
Yes, we want to thank our sponsor, Coach's Place again. They are located at 318 South 72nd Street, Omaha, Nebraska. That's just a couple blocks south of 72nd and Dodge.
And it's next to Osted's Golf.
Yep, where Ostad's Golf used to be, yep.
Yep.
The phone number is 402-905-9898. And again, their website is www.coaches, that's COACHES, place, PLACE.com. They also have a tournament coming up here. It's a Call of Duty tournament, Advanced Warfare. It's free for all tournament, November 29th at 3 p.m. for $5, and prizes will be given to the top 3 winners.
And our information is also on our Facebook page, Surviving Life's Tribulations. And you can always go back and view our shows, past shows, and if you know somebody who's struggling, who've contemplated or whatever about suicide, show them. Tell them, you go to ustream.live TV, and they go back and just sit down and, we're not bragging what we're doing this, but they might get something out of it.
Right.
So some information that might help. So thank you.
alone.
Yeah.
You're not
That's right.
alone.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, ladies. Appreciate it. Nice
Well,
meeting
thank
you.
you
I've
to-
seen you
yeah,
again.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you
Thank
take care.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks.